We wanted to talk about the outlook for the real estate market in 2025. When prices go up very, very quickly and continue, and there's an overheating that happens, basically we have what is called inflation. My outlook for the land space is for people over the next 12 to 14 months is to focus on the higher price property, to focus on including looking for commercial land. Number 3 would be to start learning about how do we, instead of just wholesaling a piece of land without doing anything to it, how can we add a little bit of value to it?
Get ready for the next iteration of you on your path to becoming wealthy. On this show, you'll get the insider's view on wealth creation, the class none of us got taught in school, with my co-host, daughter, and beginning investor, Sophia Bosch. And now, let's get started.
Welcome to Becoming Wealthy. I'm your host, Michelle, my co-host,
Sophia,
40-year-old mom, 17-year-old daughter. And we wanted to talk about the outlook for the real estate market in 2025. So I wanted us to talk a little bit about economics. I know you had some economics class today, right? And some concepts that you've been learning. Tell us about them.
Well, what do you want to know? What type?
What topics have you guys been talking about in class?
So recently we've been talking about supply and demand.
Okay, tell me more. What have you learned?
Oh, okay. So basically, supply and demand are directly correlated. So if all of a sudden a product becomes very, very wanted, the demand goes up, and therefore businesses are seeing, there's a want for this product, so they start increasing the quantity. And so if there's that demand, usually prices also go up, and the quantity of people wanting it, the demand goes up, and therefore the supply usually
is less. There's more demand, and therefore
but then sometimes the supply does increase. It's like
they can increase capacity.
They increase capacity, and then they would have to drop the price a little bit.
Okay, so this is kind of like, over the last 4 years here in the U.S., since 2020, what we've seen, and even through COVID, was a period of time where people stayed at home, where there was not a lot of spending going on, because people were stuck at home, in quarantine or whatever.
So the demand curve was not.
And there was, there was a lot of discretionary income that was getting built, savings that were getting built. And then all of a sudden, COVID is over, we go back into the market, and even through COVID, there's an increased demand for certain things, for certain items, that we use, and as there was demand was going up, there was an overheating. Basically, there's a lot of people now with money that are pouring that money into the market, and prices for real estate, for example, we had people that were coming from California,
they go all the way up
to Arizona, and prices of homes,
God,
right, were going up.
Californians.
Exactly. So we can see an increase of demand.
Yeah, demand.
Because people come from other states to Arizona, for example, if we look at this real estate market, but also just in general in the economy, there was a lot of demand for housing, for luxury goods, for all kinds of goods. People are wanting to travel more and, take road trips.
That's why plane tickets, the price increases.
Hotels
increase.
Everything.
Yeah, it's like the best example that I can give is like take like a Taylor Swift concert. You don't realize the Taylor Swift concert is happening, so you go and look and see the hotels. A hotel that's usually costs $200 a night, all of a sudden is $600, $700, maybe more.
Yeah.
You're like, why is that? And then you look at other weekends, it's back to 200.
Yeah.
And you wonder why, because that the demand is so high for those hotel rooms that they can charge more because they know people are willing to pay for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So
Willingness to pay.
So that exact same thing has been happening in the real estate market, for example, here in
People
Arizona.
want to pay for things,
but also generally
prices go up.
across the entire nation, especially the land market. What we saw was a running up of people wanting land, wanting 5-10 acres, in the outskirts of a city or in recreational areas, because now they were able to, work from home or from their computer and not have to come into an office. And so what we saw was a running up of prices. But when prices go up very, very quickly and continue, and there's an overheating that happens, basically we have what is called inflation. Have you guys talked a little bit about inflation, right?
Yes.
And basically just prices and everything getting really, really expensive. And then the government saying, or the Fed saying, okay, we need to curb this, and we're going to start increasing interest rates in order for people to not have not have access to so much capital so quickly, because otherwise this price increase
continues. Because if you have a higher interest rate, people are less likely.
It costs more. So for example, there was times where our actual producer was sharing was right now with us that there was a $500,000 home that where the monthly payment was $1,700 per month, and all of a sudden when interest went up, because the Fed had to do that in order to bring basically the spending back down a little bit. But so when they increase interest rate, now that exact same $500,000 home, the monthly payment went from $1,700 to $2,800. Yeah, and so that is pricing people out of being able to afford a home, or that affordability of a new home becomes much more
because
their
salary, like if you have a salary, your salary stays the same, but everything else around you gets more expensive, so you can't actually pay for things.
Okay, so now
anymore.
let's take that what you just said, let's apply it to the land market so that we can take a look into the future, kind of like a little crystal ball. Nobody really does have it, but we have been in a situation in the past, Dad and I, where we've gone through this cycle in the market. And so now what we have is people squeezed because on the housing side, if they wanted to buy a house, either they can't, or if they were able to, it's costing them more, to service that loan or to make that monthly payment, to the bank every single month. So now from their income, salaries that might have not raised,
right,
a bigger portion is going towards housing. The prices of food now have gone up, right? Because there's more demand for certain things. We discussed that when you were telling me about your supply and demand. And so pricing of things, of the basic needs that people, use for food, for gas, to travel around, have gone up. So now their disposable income, of a certain sector of society, especially the bottom of society, basically the people that are earning the least, having less and less disposable income. So what does that mean for us in the land space?
Disposable income meaning just
income that they could use to go and buy a 5-acre piece of land. So normally, there's different price ranges in the land space, right? You looked at some areas and counties where there was properties for $15,000 below, right, in terms of value.
Yes.
And what happens is that sometimes we can get those pieces of land, right, very easily.
Oh my God, stop. PTSD. Yeah.
So
because people are willing to sell it because they know it's a crappy piece of land.
Exactly.
Or they want some quick cash, and but no one actually wants.
And don't say crappy, because what is crappy to you is a treasure for someone else.
Yeah, true.
Yes.
No,
Anyways, so
they were willing to get rid of it so quickly that
you have been on the basically
there was no demand for it,
of learning the hard way that this lower price land was difficult to sell. And it was difficult to sell because the people that would normally go for that lower price range of land have less disposable income. That's what we just established right now.
Yeah.
Oh. So what is a logical conclusion?
Yeah, you don't want to go for those.
That you don't want to go for those. So in my opinion, until, rates continue to go down, I think the best thing for any investor in the land space, including you, would be to basically pivot to a higher priced property. Because, for example, a person that makes multiple six figures, say somebody that is one of the top earners, like $500,000 and up, or even a seven-figure owner, and they wanted to buy some land either in the path of growth or an infill lot or build a cabin in some recreational area. Do you think that they're going to be interested in the $15,000 piece of land or more in the $100,000 piece of land in a nicer area? What do you think?
The better one.
The better one. And do you know why, Sophia?
Well, they don't, in their eyes, they don't want a crappy piece of land.
That's exactly right. Basically, they want a piece of land that is representative of the station in life that they're in, and the level of wealth that they're able to afford, and the lifestyle that they have. They definitely don't want to build a cabin.
If you have a higher capital, all of a sudden you want something to represent that. You're not just gonna go. I mean, this can be debated, but most people, like, oh, I'm gonna get myself a nicer purse or a nicer, like, to replace my old one or something. Like, they want something nicer to, like.
That's exactly it. And this is what is happening here. That maybe they want to build
nicer shoes.
They want to build
like
a cabin that is worth $200,000-$300,000, and they want $100,000 piece of land with beautiful ponderosa pines. They don't want to build their $300,000 cabin next to, I don't know, a rickety mobile home.
Yeah, no, that's also not gonna help to sell it if you ever want to sell it either. You're gonna, like, the niceness, like the quality of the area also plays a big role into the pricing of, like,
exactly, amenities, whether there's already physical access, utilities to the land, all of those things. So basically my outlook, for the land space, is for people over the next 12 months, 12 to 14 months, is to focus on the higher price property, to focus on including looking for commercial land. Like, remember we had Pam Goodwin here on the show talk to us about triple net leases and how she finds basically a corner lot that might be zoned commercial or that might need some rezoning, and she basically engages these big franchises like Chili's, like McDonald's, like a Subway, like Starbucks, and so on and so forth. And basically she finds these pieces of land for these bigger franchises. So that
find the pieces doesn't she both sell them and, like, rent?
She's also exactly. She can do that as well. So I think these are the plays that we want to focus on. So whenever you start driving now, and you're going to school or running errands,
keep an eyeball out.
Keep your eyeballs open. Keep an eyeball on basically potential pieces of real estate, of land that could be a good fit, that would fit that box, basically, that Pam was telling us about, and possibly we can even collaborate with her, on those. So that one would be one of the things. So that would be second. So number one, higher price property that you can wholesale, and then you can wholesale to somebody that is basically that is much more insulated from an economic downturn, which means the high earners. That would be number one. Number two would be commercial land. And number three would be to start learning about how do we, instead of just wholesaling a piece of land without doing anything to it, how can we add a little bit of value to it? And what I mean by that is that you can add value in many ways. One of them would be, for example, maybe aggregating several lots so that you make the lot bigger. That would be one way of adding value. Another way of adding value would be subdividing.
Separating them.
Another way to add value would be to actually look at the potential for development for that piece of land.
Yeah.
And instead of just quick wholesaling, look and basically maybe partner with somebody that has gone through the process of entitlement. Do you know what entitlement means?
No.
Okay, so entitlement means going through the legal approvals with the city for a piece of land that you want to develop. Say you have 10 acres, and instead of just having a raw 10 acres, you go through the city basically's approval and work together with the city and with an architect on how can we improve these 10 acres such that maybe they have 80 townhomes, maybe that they have, there's a combination maybe of townhomes and single family homes. And just that process of getting the map and the drawings done by an architect of how that will look, basically, that in itself has already added value to the property. And those plans you could actually sell to a builder.
Yeah.
And then that builder basically is willing to pay top price much more than what you have it under contract with your seller for. So those would be my approaches, and that's kind of like what I see for the real estate market in general, specifically to land.
So the pivoting towards the higher
price property, some commercial land that we could do triple net leases with, and number 3, value add, thinking about the potential that the piece of land has beyond just wholesaling that piece of land, because we're able to, with that, add really truly zeros to our profit at the end, and still basically navigate a difficult market that for most people out there is going to take them out. We already are seeing a big pullback from land investors that are like, oh my gosh, the things that I typically sell are not selling. It's taking longer to sell. And instead of basically educating themselves and going and pivoting, they decide to give up, basically. Yeah. And so, which in a way, for the real two players is actually a good thing, because that means less competition,
Yeah.
from the people that are not willing to continue learning and continue basically equipping themselves with, more knowledge and that they put into their toolbox on more things that they can be doing with their land. So, so that was a good discussion. I liked it. Anything else that you want to add? What else are you learning in economics? Tell me, what else?
Well, we're learning, what did we just do it on? We learned how a new technological advancement or something to make the production of something easier. What does that cause? Cause and effect. So if something happens where all of a sudden your production costs become less, what will that mean? Well, the price will drop.
But with technological advancement comes the possibility of maybe the technology replacing a human, and that human losing their salary.
Well, let's just say there's an easier way to produce, I don't know, glasses. I don't know. All of a sudden, so because of that, usually it's like some sort of machinery that replaces a human, so they don't have to pay the human, right? Only have to pay for the maintenance of the machine. The prices drop. Ideally, demand would increase. Supply all of a sudden also increases, but you need that demand to match to get to an ideal equilibrium point. And this is ideally in a perfectly competitive market. So there's buyers, sellers interacting equally with each other. But then what would that do to the revenue? Well, it depends. If the demand is elastic, or more people are willing to engage and willing to pay for that, your revenue would go up. And then if the demand is inelastic, you all of a sudden at a lower price point and you produce all this, you need those profits or like the revenue to match that so you can actually make some money back.
How could we use this price elasticity even right now in the land space, you know? Maybe the higher priced properties that
Are
are
more willing, or those people are more willing to pay for
Yeah.
a nice property.
that maybe that
If you
has
targeted
that
to
has a
them.
lake close by, or that has
Yeah.
outdoors opportunities, or fishing or skiing, or even oceanfront, you know, stuff. Just thinking about what, you know, what kind of properties can we focus on, that where the price elasticity
People are
is
more,
there, and
yeah.
people are willing to pay more money, sometimes crazy money, just because they get a little bit of, you know, water frontage, and all of a sudden they can put, you know,
Yeah.
their boat in front, you know, and so on and so forth. So that's something that basically what you're learning,
You could also,
apply it for what you're doing in the land space. Lovely. I like that. Interesting, no? To bring it from
Yeah.
just a conceptual world of manufacturing, which is what
Yeah,
it's from you know, what they usually teach you on
yeah,
the
in the
textbook.
textbook. I mean, the textbook did have like some examples, but it's like better to apply
Yeah,
it. The
yeah.
example was about quinoa,
Yeah.
and I'm like, will I really need to know about quinoa? Anyways,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, it's that application, the applied, you know, knowledge of those concepts,
Yeah.
you know, in the business world, that I think makes a difference. I'm glad that we got a little bit of time here to bring it to what we do here on a daily basis, you know, in our house, which is talk about land and real estate and investing
Yes.
and so on and so forth. Any other concept that you want to talk about? Can I go back a little bit to when you said, you know, people, you know, this new technology and possibly replacing, you know, the human. What do you think humans, Sophia, need to, or people in general right now, need to be doing in the advent of this new technology that is coming? Like we see it here in Phoenix, you know, that you come out to Mockingbird and you see a Waymo
Oh, yeah.
driving by, and the Waymo has no one in there, right? So
yeah, it's a self-driving
It's a
Uber,
self-
basically.
yeah, it's a self-driving. So what do you think, like for you, what do you think you should do, or people in general should do, as we're seeing that technology is advancing quicker, faster, and
mean-
replacing?
I mean, I see it replacing jobs, like people's jobs, and taking over. Are you talking about what I should do, what I should focus on, or if it's ethical? Or if that's a whole different.
Yeah.
But honestly, I personally think the art space, people in humans, just in general, at least the top couple percent, like the people that can pay for art, or if not, like buy prints or something, people will always want to have some sort of human-made aspect. The whole aspect of art is like seeing the emotions, and can a machine really do that? I don't know. So that's why I think that would be safe.
A safe
For-
way, basically,
for
to
me to
hedge some
go.
of that risk and,
Yeah.
and become a collector of
I mean-
art, or sell art in general.
Both.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Even though, yes, like there has been like digital art, but it's made by a human, like graphic design, things like that. I
Even to sell the art, what do you think is a high income skill that you could learn that would basically
negotiating. I don't know.
negotiating, selling, sales is a high income skill that no matter what's happening, even that technology needs to be sold to the public, to
Yeah.
the government, to whoever. Like, you know, being able to move and influence a person and create value for a person through sales skills will always, I
Yeah,
think,
I
be
don't
very
think-
well compensated.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's one of the ones that I think would be at the top of my list if I was you, especially going into the next, you know, 20, 30 years of things to really, really master, for sure. Yeah. Well, anything else that you want to discuss? Okay, well then with that, we have now our predictions for the 2025 land market, right? And what things we're going to focus on, and hopefully, we can talk a little bit more about this.
Hold on.
I
have a question though. If everyone's then pointing themselves to the higher end market, or I mean, of course people are still going to try, but then I feel like they're going to quickly realize they can't sell it, the pieces of land. If everyone then tries to go up to the higher price properties, then that's all of a sudden going to be like filled with more people trying to access this. Wouldn't that drive up the prices more and demand would go down?
No, I mean, not necessarily. I mean,
but that's certain, the regulation back down to the other, and
I think there's certain areas that are kind of like insulated from that. I mean, it of course, value will only go up until the point that it makes sense, because that there's different ways to value a piece of land, and part of it is also backing into the value of the land based on the price per square footage that a builder is able to build a new home in that place, and based on that, he's only willing to, buy the piece of land at X, because the land needs to be about 20% of the total value of what he's spending, to build the home, and so on. So there is a ceiling to how much the price could go, but there are certain areas, I think, that are insulated based on the amenities of the surrounding area. So, but good question. Anyways, so thank you so much for being with us on another episode of Becoming Wealthy, where we were basically having our little crystal ball looking into the future with Sophia of what is to come in the land space. And we hope that you found this helpful and that you are able to pivot along with us in the land market. Thank you so much for being with us. Give us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed this episode. And thank you for letting us come into your world and into your life with everything that we talk about here at Becoming Wealthy with Sophia. So thank you so much.